Hi, good evening. We're back again. We are back with another live session, and this live session is very important because this will deal with a very important issue that we all are facing today. The issue that there might just be a COVID third wave, and this third wave might and can affect our children. So today's session is going to be very informative on how we need to prepare and protect our children from this third possible wave. We will be joined by one of India's top pediatrician, Dr. Nihar Parikh, who will clear our doubts on this third and maybe a possible fourth wave as they're talking about. And we will also discuss about how and what are the safety protocols for pregnant and lactating mothers to follow, so that now that the approval for their vaccination has come, they can be safe and their unborns can be safe while getting vaccinated. What we will also discuss on today's live session will be about a very suspicious. We will straight away go on to questions about first this third wave which is being talked about at this point of time.
Hi.
All right, Dr. Parikh is with us. Dr. Parikh, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me loud and clear now.
Much better.
Super. So, like I said earlier, firstly, thank you so much for being with us, because it's very important that we get all the right information that we need at this point of time. And, for fighting this war-like situation from the front lines for the entire medical fraternity. So thank you. Let me jump on straight away to my first question, which is that, we are still in the middle of this second wave, which has already caused so much devastation to so many families. As a mother of a child, and echoing the voice of so many of my friends, there is already a discussion about this third wave, which may affect our children. So my first question to you is, I know we don't need to panic, but how do we prepare for it if there is one?
So, thank you for having me. I'm glad to have another opportunity to spread the word. It's new information every day. It's new developments every day. So this never gets stale. And I'm glad at every point, if I'm giving this opportunity to kind of spread calm and peace amongst parents, the concerned parents. I don't blame them. There's a lot going on out there. The second wave being this aggressive, including in children, tensions about the third wave as well. Speaking about the third wave, we have to remember that, Tanya, the third wave is going to be because of a mutation. It's the same theory that followed this first wave. The virus mutated, gave us a devastating second wave. The second wave, which caused a disease in kids, caused a severe disease in young adults, sent young adults to hospital, was very severe in the elderly people. A lot of old people lost life. So the second wave was very scary and is currently scary because we're battling it. Now, fortunately, it's taken something like a second wave to wake up our government, to push vaccines, to kind of escalate the whole logistics of providing vaccines to the Indian citizens, to do what it takes to gather vaccines from all across the world and bring them to us, to set up distribution chains, to set up vaccination centers, door-to-door vaccine or vaccine centers, and they're doing everything it takes now. So they are technically in that way preparing for the third wave for the adults, for the young adults, by vaccinating as many of them as soon as possible, as soon as the availability is there. Now, the scary part is that they still don't have a plan of action for the kids. So the concept of the third wave is that we tackle the second wave, we treat the people who are suffered and prevent the second wave in people by vaccinations. The virus lays down low like it did in December, Jan after the first wave. 2 months, 3 months down the road, when our numbers of the second wave drop drastically, the virus gets smart again, wakes up and mutates again, changes its form again, and causes the third wave. Third wave is going to be because of a second mutation. Now, this third wave, unfortunately at that time, children will be the only one left unvaccinated. Now, if the third wave mutant virus is as deadly as the second wave or even deadlier, that's a very scary proposition for our children. But what if the virus mutates to a milder form? something that causes just flu symptoms like it has in the second wave in children, then our children won't go through as much. Yes, they will get infected. Yes, there will be few admissions here and there. They will have to go through fever, body ache, all those symptoms of a typical flu like they are going through right now. But they will not, reach the hospital. They will not require intensive care. So fingers crossed. Number one, that the third wave mutant A is much milder than the second wave mutant, and B, the third wave comes at a much later date than the second wave, so that there's enough possibility for children or some proportion of our children to get vaccinated and immune to the third wave. But what I would insist, if parents are really concerned about third wave in children, they should themselves get vaccinated now. Because if we look at the worst case scenario, that is the third wave being more deadly than the second wave, and third wave coming much sooner before the children land up getting vaccinated, then children may reach the hospital. Then children may require intensive care. And children can't be kept in the hospital isolated like adults are.
Yeah.
Children can't be kept on their own. So at that time, who's going to be there taking care of them? It's the parents. It's the mother and father who need to be vaccinated, who need to be sure about their health and be prepared that just in case the third wave is deadly, just in case the third wave harms their children, they are ready to help their children, take them where it's required, be with them and get the necessary treatment. So use this fear of the third to get yourself vaccinated, I would tell every parent. When it comes to their children, there are a lot of ifs and buts still about the third wave being more deadly than the second. When it will come, we don't know. How bad it's going to be, we don't know. So let's not place too much panic on that, but focus on ourselves as parents getting vaccinated.
Absolutely. But, Dr. Parekh, of course, we don't want to panic. But we want to be prepared for if the worst comes in. Because, during second wave or just before it, we did not see it coming. We did not prepare ourselves enough. So there's no really harm in preparing for the worst. How well are we placed in terms of, say the infrastructure, if need be, there is a third wave that hits the children? How are we placed in terms of vaccination for children? I know many countries are, either undergoing trials for maybe a 10 plus age group, but nobody's talking for an under 10 age group as of yet. How are we placed in our country for that situation?
So there are a lot of, like I said, there are a lot of hypothetical theories, there are a lot of ifs and buts, but the way I know the government now, that is the sort of the new approach of a, awakened government in the last month, better late than never is my saying, they're going to push now. They're going to push hard for vaccines in children as well. Bharat Biotech, I think, is in the third phase for children as well. And if that comes through in 3 months, we may have vaccines for kids above 6 months. If they open up all doors to international vaccines, we may have Pfizer in the next 1 month, which has already been given to children above 10 years abroad. Yeah. So it's all very much there. It's all very much a part of a strong preparation across the world. It's just that, we were reading in the papers and listening to news yesterday that WHO is, requesting rich affording countries to not vaccinate their children so that they can send those children for vaccines for adults here, finish the adults off, start vaccinating their children there if they've started. After that, once the doors are open, I'm sure those vaccines will flow in a month or two. So in the next 3 months, I see significant improvement in the plan of action for immunizing children. So I'm very optimistic for this new awakened government, which has opened all doors and plans of vaccinating a huge amount of adults by the end of the year. And some vaccination in children I see rolling out maybe latest 3 months now. But till that time, the only weapon we have is masking. So masking in children is the only way we can prevent them from getting the disease till the vaccines are rolled out. Keeping them indoors as much as possible, following all lockdown and semi-lockdown norms as kind of set by the government till those times, because they know which disease is more and how many cases are going on where. So follow those instructions given by your government. Masking is your tool, absolute tool to save your children. Yeah. So mask up well. Children under 3 don't. It's difficult to mask them, so don't. Between 3 and 8, I would suggest a 3-ply mask, but this is a special advice for all parents. When you make children wear a 3-ply mask, make sure the size is right. Because a lot of parents are using adult mask in children which covers their eyes and till now, and in frustration they pull it out. So there's no point. A good mask should cover till down here, that is 1/3 the nasal bridge and under the chin. So there's a grip. So that's the right size of the mask for your child. And my personal suggestion, if they have elastic borders, it will give a good grip to keep the mask on. Because children have a tendency of pulling it down when they're screaming, shouting. They have a tendency to pull it down, especially when they're coughing and sneezing, which beats the entire purpose. I don't blame them. It's not easy for adults as well. But if trained right, if educated right, every child above 3 years of age can have a mask on. Every child above 8 years can actually carry off a N95 on. So N95 mask above 8 years, from 3 to 8, a good elastic 3-ply cloth mask, and proper training. Stick to your isolation indoor norms as suggested by your local government. And I'm sure that's the strongest weapon we have till the vaccine come out.
Right. Now, that's the point I was actually coming to, Dr. Parekh. We have really kept our children confined to the household for more than a year now. We've really not taken them out. But now that they say that the virus is airborne, can we even let our children go to the balconies or the terrace of the house? Or is that a taboo in the current time?
I think it's important they go to the balconies and terrace because it's most ventilated part of the house. So ventilation is equally important. I think what happens is the concept of the virus getting airborne is some virus-bearing person comes to your house as a visitor, coughs and sneezes and goes away, but the virus stays suspended for hours. And that's the time if we are unmasked, we tend to take in the virus, including our children. So avoid having unmasked people come into your house. Ventilate your house at least every 3 to 4 hours. Open all the windows. You can have the AC on through the night. I don't have a problem. Have the AC on during the peak hours of the afternoon. But during morning and evening, if you can ventilate your house, let a fresh batch of air come in. Go to the terrace as long as there are not many people there, as long as just your family members and you know who's there and where they've been and where they come from. Terraces, windows are no problem. That's not the concept of airborne, that if you stand on your terrace with the windows open and your neighbor sneezes outside in the balcony, you will catch the virus. No. The concept is if the air is still, that's when the virus stays airborne for a long time. But if the air is moving and circulating, like indoors and in the house with open doors and windows, then the chances of you getting infected from the airborne virus or your child getting infected is very, very low.
Right. So, I have just one more quick question in this segment before we move on to the next topic for today. Is there a particular age group within children who are at a larger risk? It could be because of their own immune system sort of fighting off the enemy virus. Is there a particular age group that we should be more concerned and more protective about, or is it going to be the same for all children?
So, immune system in a child doesn't prevent the virus from coming in. Immune system in the child doesn't prevent the child from getting the disease. It only helps in reducing the severity of the disease. It only helps in a faster recovery of your child. So like I said, for prevention, the key is masking. Age-wise, children less than 1 year of age have lesser number of ACE2 receptors in their nostril. That's the receptor the virus clings on to and grows and goes in. So children above 1 year, less than 1 year of age is a very, very, very small proportion of the infected kids. From 1 to 5 years, I think we're looking at around about 30 to 40% of our patients. 5 years to 10 years is another 30 to 40%. And another 25 to 30% 10 years. So I would suggest the category of age group from 7 to 12 is the one which is most prone. 12 to 15 also, because they are like adults nowadays. You have 15-year-olds weighing 50, 60 kilos. They come in a sort of an adult category. But less than 1 year of age is not a major concern for us.
Right. That's great information. And, this information will come in handy to a lot of mothers who are very skeptical about how to protect their children in the right possible way. Now, moving on to my next set of questions, which are particularly for pregnant and lactating mothers. A couple of our viewers today, Zehra and Priyanka, have asked this question. The protocols for vaccination is also fast changing. While pregnant and lactating mothers could not get vaccinated a couple of weeks back, with the new norm, now they can get vaccinated. Is there any safety or protocol or precautions that they need to undergo while getting vaccinated? And is it completely safe for someone who's pregnant and lactating?
So for lactating mothers, I've been saying from day one, it's extremely safe. I think I would encourage lactating mothers to take their vaccines, because if they finish their 2 vaccines and post 15 days after the second vaccine, they can actually pass passive immunity to their newborn through the breast milk. When it comes down to pregnant women, the recommendation by the government of India is that they need to consult their obstetrician and gynecologist before going in and taking their shot. I'm still a little skeptical about the first trimester. The perfect trimester for me would be between the 3rd and the 6th month, which is the second trimester. The 3rd trimester, I'm a little skeptical again, because, that's the time where any viral infection caught by the mother can lead to a premature delivery in the child. And unfortunately, we don't have door-to-door vaccination yet. So the mother will have to go to vaccine centers, which are another cesspool of infection. So this is by no point a discouragement for mothers to not take the vaccine. But I feel that if they can take the vaccine in the second trimester, that would be ideal. For breastfeeding mothers, I am all out. Please go ahead and take the vaccine. I don't think there's a problem. They're safe to take those paracetamols also if they have few side effects post-vaccine like body ache, fever. I'm okay with that. Breastfeeding mothers should go. Pregnant mothers, I am a big fan of the second trimester yet, but I'm sure under proper guidance and under safety norms recommended by the gynecologist, even in the 1st and 3rd trimester, they can take their shot.
Right. So, Catherine, you had a question that you're 23 weeks pregnant and can you vaccinate? There you have your answer that, Dr. Parikh thinks that the second trimester is a good time to get vaccinated. And, also it's important to get vaccinated. So please consult your gynecologist and go for the shot if, you're cleared for that. Also, Dr. Parikh, I know a lot of my friends who wanted to plan to extend their families in a planned way, but they put those plans on hold, seeing the current situation, and a lot of pregnant women are very adversely affected in the current wave. What would your suggestion be to people who are actually looking at extending their family in a planned way?
I would say, focus all your energies in getting your vaccines first. Get both your vaccines. Wait for 50. You can start planning. I don't have a problem. But what happens is if you're due and you're not vaccinated, or you've just finished 1 vaccine, you're going to go to hospitals with very little immunity. So during the time of delivery, if by chance you catch an infection at the hospital, that's what my fear is. So for mothers who have not planned yet or not started to plan yet, I would suggest they should take both their vaccines and then plan. And B, for mothers who already plan or already in the 1st trimester, like we discussed, they need to take the shots, but in the 2nd trimester. So every, to-be mother or wannabe mother, I would say, hold on, take your vaccines and then plan. It's a matter of just a few months. 2 to 3 months. You waited this long. You've been so patient. Please, just for a matter of few months, finish your vaccination and take the vaccine. And I'm sure every mother wants their baby to be born in a COVID-free environment. So that would fit in your calculation as well. If your baby is born in 2022, by then I think, we're going to be out of it. So, that's
at least we can hope so.
Yeah, that's another added bonus. So plan accordingly.
Absolutely. And, this is about the vaccination. But what are the other precautions and the other safety protocols that a pregnant woman in today's time needs to take? Somebody who's in, the 1st, 2nd, or the 3rd trimester currently, what are the other vitals that they need to track? What are the other things that they need to worry about if, unfortunately, they've been hit with the virus while they're pregnant?
So pregnancy anyway is a very fragile and a special time for every mother. So even in non-COVID times, all the gynecologists and obstetricians used to lay a lot of emphasis on staying indoors, at the slightest spotting or a slightest, adverse feeling, they would ask them to take immediate bed rest. So these are things that were there in non-COVID times. In COVID times, so all these precautions should double up. I would say if a mother is first and second trimester pregnant, I would genuinely request them not to step out of the house. I would genuinely request them not to allow anybody to come to their house who's not had a clear background from COVID. And the minute there is someone sick in the house, they need to isolate and wear an N95, whether that person is, even their husband. So it's a very fragile and a special time for every mother, which we anyway take extra cautious. Preventive measures. Right now, if the mother in COVID times needs to double up on her preventive and cautiousness to make sure that even she stays a mile away from the virus. And if by chance there is the slightest indication of a PCR positive or symptoms of a COVID infection during pregnancy, depending on the trimester of pregnancy, I'm sure the gynacs will help them out, but they may need frequent sonographies, frequent tests to make sure the baby is doing well.
Thank you so much. And now to the last leg of this conversation, where we will be discussing about this whole suspicion around this black fungal infection, which is doing the rounds. There's a lot of conversation, Dr. Parekh, around this black fungal infection. Can you tell us a little more about what it is, how to stay safe if you've been affected with COVID, how to look at the early signs of something which could and may just turn deadly for you?
So let me start by saying, luckily, mucormycosis, which is also known as the black fungus, so far has not been detected in pediatric COVID. So children who have suffered from COVID or are suffering from COVID, as of now, we don't have pediatric cases reporting mucormycosis. So that's a sigh of relief that every parent should breathe. But on the other note, what is mucormycosis is very important to know. What we call as spores of mucormycosis are basically commensals in everybody's nose. So you'll be shocked to know that all of us already have spores of mucormycosis in our nose on regular basis. So it's there, it's living peacefully. It's a symbiotic relationship between your nasal mucosa and the mucormycosis spores. But what has happened in COVID is because for some unknown reason, when you get the COVID virus, your immunity drops in the form of low counts, low platelets. So these spores, which are otherwise friendly spores living in your nose, they take this opportunity to start growing. And that's when you get infected with mucormycosis. So any form of drop in immunity, the surprising thing is in the first wave, there were hardly any cases. There were cases, unreported cases of mucormycosis, but the first variant of the first wave did not cause so much of immunosuppression, that is drop in counts in immunity. This B1617 causing the second wave is dropping immunity in healthy individuals, 31-year-olds, 41-year-olds getting admitted with mucormycosis. So we know for sure that this variant is extremely, extremely strong and virulent in destroying the immunity of the host. So that's when the spore takes this opportunity to grow. Second group of individuals are diabetic people who already have high sugars and low immunities. And third individuals are those who have been given unnecessary steroids which temporarily drop their immunity and gives those spores living in your nostrils, which are there airborne everywhere, but otherwise are harmless. Only this situation is there when they take an opportunity to grow. They grow upwards, they grow into your sinuses, they grow behind your eye, they go into your brain, they go down to your throat. So the red flag is usually within the second or third week of recovery of COVID, a highest number of mucormycosis cases are being seen. Starts with epistaxis, bleeding from the nose. It grows upwards into the sinuses, causing severe frontal sinusitis and headaches. By the time there is blurry vision, by the time there is eye pain, it's already a bit too late because it's grown towards the eye and reduces and nearly, causes tremendous amount of eye pain and then eventually loss of vision. A lot of my ENT friends are currently operating in removing the infected eye so that it prevents the spread of going to the brain. Because once it reaches the brain, it tends to get a little scary and fatal for the patient. So my point here is not to scare anybody in the city of Bombay, but this is what mucormycosis is. Research also shows that there are a huge number of cases in our municipal hospitals like Nair KM Sion of mucormycosis currently. But as my colleagues inform me, that they are not locals from Mumbai, there are people from interiors of Maharashtra who have come down specially for this treatment.
Right.
So in urban cities like Delhi and urban cities like Mumbai, the urban population is not getting it. It's the rural population which is coming to the urban centers because of getting infected there, possibly because of low hygiene levels there, possibly because of, using unnecessary steroids there. So if the treatment protocols are not proper, unnecessary steroids are used, this fungus takes an opportunity and grows. So we are a little, wary about this current scenario of mucormycosis in our cities. It's there. The cause of which is still under study. But one thing that, I sleep well at night right now, knowing that it's not infecting or affecting children as of now.
Right, Dr. Parekh. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today, for sharing all of this very valuable information with us, which will not only, let us prepare for what lies ahead, but also tell us what are the right protocols to follow. So thank you so much. We will not keep you for long. We will let you go back and treat your patients. And thank you so much for doing an incredible job that you're doing and for joining us today. With that, we've actually...
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you, Dr. Parekh. With that, we've actually come to the end of this live session. But, a recorded version of the session will be available on the Mommy Wise page. So if you would like to refer to anything Dr. Parekh said again, you can go back and look at that recording. Do keep writing into us on the topics that you want us to take up for our next live sessions. Any questions that you may have that we can get an expert to answer for you. And like Dr. Parekh said, do not panic. Just stay safe, stay indoors. Follow all the safety protocols, keep your children safe, and that's all you need to do to battle this situation that we are into. Don't worry too much about the third wave. Just stay safe and stay home. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again with another live session very soon.
Bye-bye.